So I'm sure you've heard some variation of the phrase, most men live lives of quiet desperation. Actually, the original phrase comes from Henry David Thoreau, and the original expression, I believe, is the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. And that was, I think, in his book, Walden, written in 1854. It appears early in the book, and it's in a chapter called Economy. The popular version, most men live lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them, combines Thoreau's sentence with a later paraphrase, probably by Oliver Wendell Holmes. So, what is the logic? What did he mean by it? Thoreau's logic is laid out in the surrounding passage. He argues that what we call resignation to our lot in life is actually confirmed desperation, a settled unconscious despair people accept as normal. He says this despair is stereotyped but unconscious, even hidden under our games and amusements, suggesting that busyness, entertainment, social roles mask a deep sense of meaninglessness or dissatisfaction. For Thoreau, the root of this desperation is living by society's expectations. Too many artificial wants, debt, endless work, living for others' standards rather than one's own inner calling. In the same breath, he points to a way out. He calls it a characteristic of wisdom not to do desperate things, implying that a wise life is simple, reflective, and self-chosen rather than compulsively driven by fear, lack, or conformity. So, actually, Thoreau's quiet desperation almost exactly what many traditions would call life lived out of alignment with Dharma. Externally functional, inwardly estranged from one's true nature and one's true desires and way. Thoreau sees people conforming to inherited scripts, work, consumption, status, while a stereotype but unconscious despair hums under the surface. In Buddhist terms, this is latent dukkha, latent suffering, not crisis-level pain, but a background unsatisfactoriness produced by clinging to socially supplied desires and identities, a background lack of contentment. How many of us feel that all the time? It masquerades as maturity, realism, resignation, what Thoreau calls confirmed desperation. From an awakening lens, that background hum is the friction between conditioned self, the role constructed me, the role I play in the world, and the deeper fact of being, awareness itself, which cannot be fulfilled by finite objects we keep chasing. Desperation is what it feels like, phenomenologically, when the life energy tries to move its truth and keeps getting rerouted into substitutes. In Walden, Thoreau doesn't only diagnose, he experiments with a different way of life, radically simplified, contemplative, oriented toward what is intrinsically meaningful rather than socially rewarded. In dharmic language, you could say he's groping toward what is called Dharma, a way of living that expresses one's unique configuration in service of something larger, truth, nature, sanity, instead of merely reproducing the collective trance. So Dharma here is not just the job you love, but the right alignment between the nature of reality, which is impermanence, interdependence, the futility of egoic grasping, and then the alignment between that and the nature of this particular instrument, your actual capacities, temperament, karmic pattern, and then the field you're embedded in, what is yours to do given the world's needs. When those line up, those three things, the underlying tone shifts from quiet desperation to quiet coherence, even if outer circumstances remain modest or challenging. So many teachers explicitly note that despair is often the precondition for a more radical seeing. So many spiritual teachers speak of despair as a necessary prerequisite for the next level of consciousness, and of suffering as grace because it breaks our identification with false promises. In this sense, Thoreau's observation is double-edged. It's both a diagnosis and an invitation. Awakening often begins when the strategies that keep desperation quiet stop working. The career upgrade doesn't touch it. The relationship doesn't fix it. The spiritual bypassing loses its aesthetic. When one finally stops anesthetizing and feels the desperation directly, it can flip from pathology to inquiry. What exactly is this self that is so restless and unfulfilled? What is it? That is the movement from confirmed desperation to genuine sadhana. In modern terms, a lot of what we call purpose talk still operates inside quiet desperation. It is about optimizing the same egoic game, more meaningful productivity, more resonant brand. A dharmic reframe would be, let the desperation expose all the strategies that don't work. See that the common factor in their failure is misidentification with a contracted separate self. From that seeing, allow a subtler organizing principle to emerge. Call it Dharma, Tao, Logos, or simply, what is mine to do now? Then purpose becomes less a heroic declaration and more a clairaudience. You listen for the signal that is already here and shape your life so you can receive and transmit it clearly. The outer expression can look very ordinary, but the inner tone is no longer desperate. It's devotional and participatory. So, in the spirit of Walden, a contemporary dharmic response might look like 1. Reducing some unnecessary complexity and consumption to free attention for direct seeing and sincere action. 2. Setting up your life as a small laboratory where you can test what actually relieves suffering and reveals truth rather than what merely distracts. And 3. Letting community and containers built for attunement and discernment support the long arc. This is my hope with our community, having gone through quiet desperation myself. And I hope that ultimately we can see that seeking doesn't collapse back into private drift and refined despair. So in that sense, the line from Thoreau reads almost like a koan placed at the gate of awakening. Will you live out the script of quiet desperation, or will you let this very despair ripen into the clarity of your dharma? I've started to ask myself that. I ask you the same.